You know, I found this adorable little purse, and it's cute, it's small, but it gave me all kinds of inspiration. The woven body of the purse and especially the woven handle, well, I'm going to do the same thing using my serger and creating belt loops. Belt loops? Well, I bet you never thought you'd be making lots of belt loops to make something this pretty. I'm Cathy. This is Sewing Tech Talk. Let's dive into the Accolade and the belt loop binder. So this cute little purse really inspired me. I just think it's adorable. It's kind of small, so I figured I could make a bigger one that uses the same technique, well, slightly different. I think this is woven out of ribbon, and the handle is really unique. So I think I can do that with belt loops. Yes, belt loops. This is the Babylock Accolade Serger, and it's an 8-thread serger. It does the overlock stitches, and it also does a cover stitch. We'll be only using the cover stitch for this technique, making our belt loops. I have it set up for a 3-thread wide cover stitch. I could also use a triple cover stitch, which is 3 rows of stitching on the top if I wanted to add a little bit more bling and showcase my threads a little bit more. And I'm going to be using both of the belt loop binders that you can get. They're available for the Babylock Accolade and other 8-thread Babylock sergers. There's a cover stitch only machine, and of course there's the big Mac Daddy of them all, the Triumph. So now I have the machine set up for a wide cover stitch, and I'm going to attach the belt loop binder, which looks just like this. There are 2 available. This is the 3/4 inch belt loop binder, and this is the 1.5 inch belt loop binder. That doesn't refer to the finished width of the belt loop. That refers to the size of the strip that's going to be modified. So this makes a belt loop that looks just like a regular old belt loop, and this makes a slightly wider one. I am going to be using the standard foot, and I also have a bamboo skewer or a stiletto and a pair of tweezers to get my belt loop fabric started through the attachment. So how does this work? Well, if we're installing the belt loop binder, what we need to do is put the cover stitch table on, because we're going to be doing a cover stitch. And these 2 white screws came with the machine, and we're going to attach them just like that. You can't use just one or the attachment will shift on you. So now, having put that in, we need to adjust it side to side. I'm going to be using the standard foot that came with the machine, and on the toe of the foot, these are where the needle positions are for that cover stitch. I'm going to be using a wide cover stitch, so that's this mark and this mark. So I want this opening here, where the belt loop folded fabric shoots out, to be centered right on that. While I'm here though, before I put the foot on, I want you to notice that the machine has feed dogs. Well, a serger has huge feed dogs, and I have the tip of the attachment really close to those feed dogs, and it's going to be really close to the toe of the foot. So let's put that foot on and you'll see what I'm talking about. So I have this attachment just touching the toe of that foot, and you can see that it's kind of centered, this opening between these 2 marks. Now you may need to adjust it. So as you're stitching your little belt loops, shoot through some fabric and see if you need to adjust it side to side. If I need to adjust it forward and back, I have these 2 screws right here. I can loosen them and move the attachment forward or back, depending on which foot I'm using, my fabric, all kinds of stuff. But for me, for today, this is the ideal situation. Now I'm going to do my belt loops, and here's my fabric. This is cut on the straight of the grain. It could be cut on the bias. If I'm just using straight stitch like I am today, then I really don't need to cut it on the bias. But if I'm going around a curve, well, I'm going to want to use a bias strip, and I need to get it started. So the width of the strip that you cut, technically they want you to have it fit between these 2 sides of the foot. I cut it just a tiny little bit bigger, and of course that depends on your fabric, so experiment. When I put the fabric in, you can see that I'm going from this side to this side, and I am a little bit wider than that gate down below. So use your bamboo skewer or your stiletto and push the fabric forward as far as you can and have it hopefully come out underneath the toe of the foot. Now it needs to be a little bit far back for these feed dogs to catch it, and that's when your handy tweezers come into play. So I'm going to pull it just a little bit forward, just so that the needles are going to catch it. Now you might have noticed it got all squirrely here, so just be the enforcer and put it on in. Now when it first stitches, it's going to look a little bit goofy, but this attachment is going to really tame that fabric and put it right into position. So I think I have enough. The feed dog should be grabbing it. Lower my presser foot, and let's see if we can make a belt loop. So the fabric isn't being grabbed, so let's push it forward just a little bit more. There it goes. It only takes a little bit to get that right under the feed dogs and under the foot, so it's being pulled in. And I think we're making a belt loop. So now I'm going to be weaving my belt loops. So I need literally a ton of them. And this procedure is so easy. It's really simple to do. It's almost mindless. I'm not going to say you could put a brick on the power pedal of the machine, but it's pretty darn close. So we're going to make a whole bunch of these. How many? Well, I have a handout. It kind of tells you how many strips. It gives you some sort of a calculation kind of idea of how many you're going to need to cut for depending on the weaving that you're going to go do. So let's get the now. Oh, and the other thing is you don't necessarily have to have all these strips be individual. You can join one big long strip. How do you do that? Well, let me come to this one, and I'll show you. So now, let's say I need to join another one. So let's make another one. Now here's my next strip that I need to join. What I'm going to do is as I come up before it feeds in, I'm going to take my second strip and I'm going to lay it right on top of the first. And yes, it's overlapped. So that overlap, I can actually cut it off a little bit later, or if I'm doing my weaving, I can kind of bury it under a cross. So let's pull that forward and see what we get. You're going to want to tuck it in just like the other one. And it pulled right over the other one, and you can barely see that join. Yes, there's a raw edge there, but like I said, I can bury that when I'm doing my weaving. So here's where I was inspired. I'm going to take my strip and I'm going to do the weaving for the body of my bag. My bag is going to be a little bit bigger. Isn't that fun? Look at how cool that is. I've taken all my strips and I've actually woven them on the diagonal. And here's another idea. You can use all kinds of the belt loops for all kinds of things. I'm going to cover the seam between the two, and actually it'll cover that raw edge, and it's going to look not like a piping, but it's going to be really cool. Now, unfortunately, you can't make a belt loop and sew it on top of fabric directly because there's just not room with that belt loop binder attachment. But here's one thing that you can do that I think is kind of clever. You can, in the cover stitch looper, which is that thread on the bottom that goes back and forth just like this, you can use a fusible thread. And the fusible thread makes this a fusible strip. So, fusible thread in your cover stitch looper, and this strip will then become fusible. Pretty cool, right? So now, if you made your strips, it's time to weave them. Like I said, I have my handout, and if you go to moresew.com/shop, at the very bottom of that page, you're going to find the links to all of my handouts. And I take you through this process and tell you about making a weaving board. Well, let me show you what that looks like. Now, a weaving board is really basically just something that you can pin into. So this is an ironing pad that I have, and what I've done is I've used masking tape to space out the area that I'm going to weave. You could also use a foam core board, but don't stick your pins all the way through because that would scratch you up and that would hurt. So, weaving patterns. I bet you never thought you'd be looking up weaving patterns, but go on the internet and just type in weaving patterns, and oh my goodness, I did, and you can come up with all kinds of really fun different patterns, designs, all kinds. Those weavers are having all kinds of secret fun that we don't necessarily know about. And you can take your weaving and make actually the center of a quilt or the center of a project. There's all kinds of fun things to do. So now I'm weaving this pattern. It's kind of a twill pattern, and I'm using my little book to show me exactly how to do it. So you come on in. I just take my strips. Notice I have them pinned on either side. You'll want sturdy pins for this. And I'm just going to weave it in. I believe this one goes, I think I need my instructions, but maybe it goes like this. That might be it. And if these were different colors, you can imagine the creative possibilities. Imagine these were different colors. Imagine I'm using big ones and little ones. I could weave ribbon in there as well. I'm just creating a fabric, as it were, to use for my little project. Now, once I get everything woven, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my masking tape and I'm going to put it around this edge here. And that's going to hold these strips in place till I take them off, take the pins out, and sew around here with my sewing machine. And what that's going to do is that's going to hold all these strips in place. And you can tightly weave it, you can loosely weave it. There's all kinds of possibilities out there. So make your strips, weave your little area that you need. And can you see this? I'm making a purse, but what about the collar of a jacket or the yoke of a shirt? Oh my gosh, there's so many places you could use these. Absolutely a pocket. So anyway, that's just straight weaving, and it's just flat weaving, and it's just done with just those basic strips. But what really intrigued me about my little inspiration purse was the handle. And the handle is woven in the round. Now, I got to thinking, how do you weave in the round? So I remembered way back in my childhood, there was this little thing called a finger trap. I don't know if you remember those or not, but you put your fingers on either end, and when you pulled it out, your fingers were caught. Well, I said, you know what? I think that's a woven in the round. So, thank goodness for the internet. I went on there and I Googled finger trap, and there's all kinds of videos and instructions, and I read them and I go, I think I can do that a little bit easier. So let me show you what I came up with, and I think it's absolutely the coolest handle ever. Look at this. Now this is kind of wide, but you can make it narrower. So here is my cool woven strap. Isn't that fun? Now of course you can make it a little bit narrower, but I wanted to make a statement with my purse. So let me show you how I did that. Weaving in the round, like I said, there's a handout, and I have pictures in there and step-by-step instructions. But what you basically need is a tube. And the tube could be just a paper towel roll, or one that you make out of shirt cardboard yourself. And what you do is you just get it started using your bias strips. Now let me show you basically, now it's in the handout, but let me show you basically how this works. So what I did is I started my strips at the very top, and I'm using 2 colors so that you can easily see how this is done. Can you see the over and under weave of these strips? Now I know they're kind of far apart, but once I take it off the tube, I can tighten it up and make a really kind of a more normal size handle. So what you do is you start strips going this way. That's going to be the pink strips, and under those, I call those the stationary strips, and they are put onto the tube with a rubber band. That always reminds me that those are stationary. Now these off-white strips, I call them the working strips, and what they're going to do is they're going to weave in and out through those stationary strips. So how do you do it? Where's the next thing that you go? Well, basically, what you do is you go around and around, take your strip, and I can't go under this because that wouldn't be right. I'm going to go under this one. So I'm just going to take it and go under that one. Check. I'm going to move over one. This is the next one. It goes under this one. Once you get the first couple rows started, it really goes fast and easy. Remember, don't drop your strip. You're always just working with the working strips to go under those stationary strips. And you just keep going around and around and around and around and around, weaving, weaving around a tube. When I get done with this part, I loosen these up, take this off, and I can scoot my handle up and just keep going. When I'm finished, I'm just going to sew all these parts together, just like this. I'm just going to lay it out flat and sew all those parts together, and then I have a really cool handle. Here's my first experimental one. See how cool that is? See how that's that finger trap? Pretty neat, right? Well, that might be a little bit much. You may not be wanting to sit like me and weave in the round to make your handle. So let me show you a little bit easier handle done with belt loop strips. So here is my small binder. This is my 3/4 inch. Remember, that refers to the size of the strip that's coming in. But there is a larger one, and it is right here. So I thought you'd like to see what this looks like when it's going on. So we're going to take this one off. These 2 white screws came with your machine in the accessory compartment, which is on the side of your machine. So now I'm going to lay this on and attach the white screws to the side. And adjust side to side so that I am centered on these 3 areas where my needles are going to be. So I'm going to loosen it up, make sure it's absolutely centered. Now the stitching is going to be more in the middle of this one. All right, now I'm going to take my fabric, which is cut pretty much this width, but mine might be a little bit bigger, and it's going to go through just the same as that other strip. You could also cut this a little bit with a diagonal, and that might help it go through just a little bit easier. Take your skewer and push it in. This bigger fabric doesn't want to cooperate like the other fabric did. I'm going to raise my foot, grab my tweezers, and get this one started. get started, you're going to want to adjust the placement of it. It might need to scoot a little bit more to the left or to the right to get that stitching right in the middle. So there's my wide strip, and there it is on the back. Now a really cool handle, what you can do is you can actually put some interfacing in here. You can feed it through the belt loop binding attachment at the same time to make this a little bit sturdier, and take this now and put it on this side. Now you might want to sew it down, or you could use that fusible thread like I said, but that makes a very, very, very nice, very sturdy, very fun purse handle. And it goes just like that. So you may or may not want to weave an entire purse. But you could make some small little pieces, and this would be great. Try it. Make yourself like a hot pad or a trivet or something just for fun, but I think you're going to be hooked. It's a really fun way to use your serger. That's not the tradition. So whether you make a plain woven thing, or I have to admit, this is like the coolest purse handle. Oh, this could be a belt. Do you know anybody in cosplay? This would be fantastic. Anyway, I could go on and on. The creative possibilities, they're pretty much endless. I'm going to shoot it off to George. He's going to tell you a little bit more about the Accolade. It's an amazing 8-thread serger, and belt loops, well, they're not just for your pants.
Thanks, Kathy. As always, that was an incredible presentation. The Babylock Accolade is quite an amazing serger. It combines both a cover hem and a serger all in one, with such exclusive features that Babylock's known for, like air threading, but auto thread delivery eliminates the need for tension, so you can sew on all different types of fabric with different thread, and all you do is know your ABCs. You select the dial based on the suggested setting, and everything is perfect for you. And I love that about Babylock. But the fact that you can sew all 8 threads for ruffling or working with the decorative wave stitch, it truly is a top-of-line serger. And we have an incredible buy on this here. The Babylock Accolade has a package retail value of $5,744. Right now, we have it on sale for $34.99. We're offering interest-free payments as well as free shipping across the country. But wait, there's a bonus. So right now, we're including the Babylock Accolade Inspirational Guide. This gives you full color, step-by-step instructions to do virtually everything that this serger does. And it does a lot. We're also including a selection of Madeira Aerolock thread, as well as 6 Babylock accessory feet, which includes the ruffler foot, elastic foot, one for sewing lace, piping, and more. Besides that, you get a membership to Babylock Love of Knowledge. This is a very comprehensive training portal where there are videos on how to operate this serger, as well as doing techniques on a serger in general and using accessories. This total value of the bonus is nearly $350, and it's included with the Babylock Accolade for a limited time. So give us a call at 1-800-865-9664 or click on the link to purchase the Accolade today. Bye.